Are we live? Let me know when we are live. Okay. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Dear brothers and sisters, welcome to our talk series about Bilal Habashi, past, present, and future. Inshallah, with the Imam Abu Qadir Alamin, San Francisco Community Center Imam, we are gonna make book discussion and also for the look for our past, present, and future in African-American experience in the United States. Inshallah, we are starting with the our NAIC Executive Director, Imam Ali, to recite some verses from the Quran, Surat Fujurat, ayat number 10 to 13. Imam Ali, please.
أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم إنما المؤمنون إخوة فأصلحوا بين أخويكم واتقوا الله لعلكم ترحمون يا أيها الذين آمنوا لا يسخر قوم من قوم عسى أن يكونوا خيرا منهم ولا نساء من نساء عسى أن يكن خيرا منهم ولا تلمزوا أنفسكم ولا تنابزوا بالألقاب بئس الاسم الفسوق بعد الإيمان ومن لم يتب فأولئك هم الظالمون يا أيها الذين آمنوا اجتنبوا كثيرا من الظن إن بعض الظن إثم ولا تجسسوا ولا يغتب بعضكم بعضا أيحب أحدكم أن يأكل لحم أخيه ميتا فكرهتموه واتقوا الله إن الله تواب رحيم يا أيها الناس إنا خلقناكم من ذكر وأنثى وجعلناكم شعوبا وقبائل لتعارفوا إن أكرمكم عند الله أتقاكم إن الله عليم خبير صدق الله العظيم.
Dear brothers and sisters, I'm just gonna repeat English version of those verses, English translation, approximate translation for those verses. Chapter 49, verse 10. The believers are but brothers, so make peace between your brothers, and keep from disobedience to God in reverence for him and piety, particularly in your duties toward one another as brothers, so that you may be shown mercy, granted a good, virtuous life in the world as individuals and as a community, and eternal happiness in the hereafter. Verse 11. You who believe, let not some people among you deride another people. It may be that the latter are better than the former, nor let some woman deride other women. It may be that the latter are better than the former, nor defame one another, and provoke the same for yourselves in retaliation, nor insult one another with nicknames that your brothers and sisters dislike. Evil is using names with vile meaning after those who so addressed have accepted. The faith, doing so is like replacing a mark of faith with a mark of transgression. Whoever does that and then does not turn to God in repentance, giving up doing so, those are indeed wrongdoers. Verse 12. O who you believe, avoid much suspicion, for some suspicion is a grave sin, liable to God's punishment. And do not spy on one another, nor backbite against one another. Would any of you love to eat the flesh of his dead brother? You would abhor forgiveness and additional reward, all compassionate, particularly towards his believing servants. Verse 13. O humankind, surely we have created you from a single pair of male and female, and made you into tribes and families so that you may know one another, and so build mutually and cooperative relationships. Not so that you may take pride in your differences of race or social rank or breed enmities. Surely the noblest, most honorable of you in God's sight is the one best in piety, righteousness, and reverence for God. Surely God is all knowing, all aware. Allah says the truth. So these are the verses from Surah Hujurat, chapter 49, between 10 to 13. I think these verses are very related to our how to approach each other, especially in race relationships, or the one that we don't know how to make assumptions or not to make negative assumptions. So inshallah, brothers and sisters, we are reading and making book discussion with this book, Bilal Al-Habashi, and it's gonna continue for 4 weeks. And we are gonna start for the first quarter of the chapter. Then we will look in the reflections of American experience, African American Muslim brothers in United States. So without further ado, I would like to give the microphone and video to Imam Abu Qadr Al-Amin. And Imam, welcome. Thank you very much giving your time to us. And floor is yours. Oh, by the way, if you have any questions, you can write in YouTube. Then I can try to ask those questions to Imam afterwards. Thank you. Imam, we cannot hear you. Can you unmute your microphone, please?
Assalamu alaikum.
Aleyküm selam, Imam.
Alhamdulillah. Thank you so much for inviting me to be on this program with you today.
It's a pleasure.
Alhamdulillah.
Thank
I'm
you.
sorry that I was in traffic. I had made it to my residence, so I'm parked nearby a school, sitting in the nice shade area in my car. So I hope that's all right and the communication is clear.
I think it's clear as it gets. Inshallah, let's start and see what is the, Allah, is going to give us. Thank you very much for participating under those circumstances.
Yes. Yes. So, alhamdulillah. So, am I to start now?
Yes, please do so. Thank you very much. Floor is yours, Imam.
Okay. Okay. Alhamdulillah. Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. With Allah's name, the merciful, benefactor, the merciful Redeemer. Ashhadu an la ilaha illallah wahdahu la sharika lahu wa ashhadu anna Muhammadan abduhu wa rasuluh. I witness openly that nothing deserves to be worshipped except Allah. He is one and alone. He's unique without associates or partners. And I witness openly that Muhammad ibn Abdullah, the one to whom the Quran is revealed, that he is the servant and messenger of Allah. It is an honor and a privilege for me to be speaking with you this evening regarding this publication, Bilal Al-Habashi, written by Bilal Kara and Abdullah Kara. It's very interesting that this research was done. And now there was always the curiosity on the part of African Americans. We had some scanty information about Bilal ibn Rabah and his life, mainly from a few statements in hadith books, but we had never had a detailed written manuscript that covered more of the details about Bilal ibn Rabah and his family and how he came to be in Mecca enslaved. So it was eye-opening in that it gave more of the details that some of us, though we greatly admire Bilal ibn Rabah for his role that he played, being the first Muslim and also being the treasurer who took care of Zakat al-Mal and his being in close companionship with our Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. But it was very refreshing to read about his mother's conversion to Al-Islam and his brother Khalid, his sister Gufayra, and his mother Mama. Some of those details we were aware of his mother's name, but we had never learned about his other family members. So this was very enlightening to us and refreshing. I tried to pick it up from one of the traditional bookstores in the area, and it was an interesting comment that the owner of the bookstore said he didn't carry the book, and he went on to explain that he didn't know the authenticity of the writers. And I said, well, there are some other books that you also carry in your store. I don't know if you're familiar with all of the writers. So we got a chuckle out of that. But I think this was well researched. It was well written. You can tell from the content of the chapters that the people had great appreciation for Bilal Ibn Rabah and the great contribution that he made to our Islamic history. And as an African American Muslim, who at one point, under Imam W.D. Muhammad's leadership, when he became the leader of his father's community, what was called the Nation of Islam at that time, I believe it was around 1976 or 77, he began to look at Bilal Ibn Rabah, and we called ourselves at that particular time Bilalians. We were looking to identify ourselves with this great personage in Islamic history whose life paralleled some of our experiences here in America, in that we had been enslaved. We're the descendants of Africans who were brought from the shores of West Africa and enslaved in the Americas. We're the descendants of that people. So many of us began to accept Islam here in America in the early 1900s, some as early as 1920. More popularly, the Nation of Islam was started in 1931 with Mr. W.D. Farad teaching Elijah Muhammad, the Honorable Elijah Muhammad, Islam as he understood it. And Imam W.D. Muhammad grew out of that movement, and he identified with our, I'll say, figure in history, Bilal Ibn Rabah, as a person that we could pattern ourselves after. He was a man of faith. He was a contributor to societal growth and development, and we are on the same trajectory. We're trying to use Islam to influence our life and make our contribution to American society. At
Assalamu
one
alaikum,
point,
Imam. I'm
Imam
sorry
W.D.
to,
Muhammad's,
I'm
yes.
so I'm sorry to interrupt you. We have some complaints regarding the voice
Yes.
cracking voice is coming. Is there any way you can disconnect, then connect back, perhaps without the video this time, to see if this connection will be improved, especially for the, if we can eliminate the voice cracking issues? Would it be okay if you can disconnect and connect back, and without the video this time, to see, if we can resolve the voice crackling issues that our watchers, complain about? Brothers and sisters, we have some feedback regarding the voice quality. So we ask Imam if he can disconnect and connect back again, then we can solve this matter. Thank you very much for your patience.
Assalamu alaikum. Is that better?
Okay, I think it's better, but let me get feedback from our Brother Bahadur. Brother Bahadur, sound is better? Imam, could you continue to talk? Then I will check with our YouTube watchers. If they are going to give us feedback, then I will tell you.
Okay. Also, during that period, we began to identify ourselves ethnically as Bilalians. During that period, four of my children were born in 1980, 1982, 1984, and 1986. And on the birth certificates, where they asked for the ethnicity of the child, we put on the birth certificate Bilalian. So there's a large number of people throughout the United States of America, individuals who had children who were affiliated with the leadership of Imam W.D. Muhammad. They put on their children's birth certificates Bilalian. So that will be something that future historians, when they review some of the changes that took place in America, you'll see there were thousands of us who began to adopt Muslim names. So there was a revolution in terms of children being named Bilal and Aisha and Ali and Muhammad and Harun and Hafsa and Da'iya. All of these names began to become very popular in American culture. Part of that phenomenon was as a result of Imam Debi Muhammad's leadership and his influence and his encouraging us to leave our mark on this society by influencing it with our culture, our names, our language. The Arabic language began to be heard throughout America, with Muslims calling their adhan in their neighborhoods, and you could hear the adhan called over the cities throughout America over the loudspeakers for the 5 daily prayers and things of this nature. Also, some songs were created during this time. I don't know if Harun, if you can cue up the song that was written by Da'iya Muhammad Taha, and the name of the song is Master Bilal. I don't know if you're able to cue that up onto the program at this time.
Give me a minute, Imam. I'm working on it. Give me a minute. This is wonderful. Now we learn especially how Ali's, Aisha's, Bilal's became so popular. Even some non-Muslims, brothers and sisters in humanity in United States, they are using those names. And I didn't give much thought regarding this, movement that they started, putting names starting with Bilal and putting Aisha's, Ali's, Hatice's, and there are also some even right now movie artists. Some of them are ladies. They are using Ali, in their names. What was the name of the song, Imam? I will try to stream. I'm in the YouTube right now. If you can give me.
It seems that I have a bad connection. It keeps cutting on and off.
Yeah, it's happening. I'm sorry. Maybe can you hear me, ma'am?
Yes, I can.
Okay. Could you repeat that song name, if possible, and person who is?
Yeah, I was at the name of the song is Master Bilal, and the author is, the singer is Da'iya Muhammad Taha. And if you go to YouTube, you can pull it up.
I think I found it. Do you want to stream it right now?
Yes,
brother,
that would be perfect.
okay. Brother Bahadur, I am sending you to YouTube link on Zoom. Is there any way you can play on the Zoom, this YouTube link for our audience? I'm just sending you right now.
Okay.
I found the song. I'm sending Brother Bahadur, who is in the back end on this program, working tirelessly to make successful. Do you see the link, Brother Bahadur? Could you play this YouTube link for our friends? Thank you. I appreciate it. Maybe you can also show the video, that sister's picture, to write the song.
You hear?
Perfect. Just show the name. Yeah, there you go. Thank you.
I can't hear the volume. I don't know if it's playing right now.
Brother Bahadur is adjusting right now. I think he's gonna play soon. He just put the screen on the.
Yes.
Okay, Brother Bahadur, we cannot hear the sound. Can you check it, please?
How about now?
We cannot hear it.
How about
Now
now?
it's working. It's working.
Can go back? Hold on, go back. Hold on. You can hear now?
Perfect. Thank you.
Okay.
The Honorable Wallace D. Muhammad has declared that we as so-called blacks should call ourselves Bilalians. Bilal was a man who was great in the history of Islam. He was the first minister of Prophet Muhammad, may peace be on him, and the first to call the people to prayer. And like all great men of history, his greatness was proven by his ability to stand up in the face of opposition for what he believed. His belief that there is only one God. Come gather round, people, and listen real well. I'll tell you the story of a man called Bilal. Born of black skin and Egyptian skin, he grew up the slave of Ethiopia land. The life of a slave was as cruel as could be. Bilal found no help from his misery. Until one day he heard a voice say, it was the voice of the prophet Muhammad he heard. He roused up the souls to believe in the word. The prophet he taught him the religion of truth. He forsake all the idols that he worshipped in youth. He taught him to bow to the one God and pray. His heart filled with joy when he heard Bilal say, so sweet and so proud, he cried it out loud. And of all of his callers, he was so selfless. For convicts were tortured in a very cruel way. It was forced out heat of the sun in midday. The masters deprived them of water to make the religion dark who would be the first. Though hypocrites turn, Bilal he stood firm. He cried, Allah, Allah, Allah.
Thank you very much with wonderful experience, Brother Bahadur and Imam. Floor is yours, Imam.
Thank you very much for playing that beautiful song written by Daia Muhammad Taha. We ask that Allah reward her with paradise. She contributed greatly to our cultural expressions as Muslims here in America, and we love her for that. To change gears a little bit, I would like to also mention that in addition to our identifying with Bilal as the muezzin and as the figure, many African Americans also began to change their names. And there was at one point in the early 80s, an individual by the name of Charles Bilal, who became the mayor of a city in Texas. I believe it was Kunz, Texas. He became the mayor of the city, and his name was Charles Bilal. He was affiliated with the leadership of Imam W.D. Muhammad and a part of the world community of Islam in the West, as we called ourselves at that time. Also, during this same period, there were two individuals, both of them in the Ohio area. One was a judge. His name was Bilal. He was a judge in the federal court system in the state of Ohio. And also there was a judge with the name Bilal. I don't recall if it was his first name or his last name, but he was a judge in the Maryland, Washington, D.C., Baltimore, Maryland area of the United States. So not only have many Muslims begin to name their sons after Bilal. I know a friend of mine, he named his daughter Bilalia. He gave it a female twist. And that's because we identify with this great personage and we were seeking to dignify ourselves with our relating to Islam as our religion, but also having a sense of valuing our African identity, the fact that we are African Americans. Allah chose to put us in this particular image that we have as people, and we feel good about it. And we've tried to share that by making our contribution to improving on American life with our Islamic beliefs and our practices. So we're grateful that you chose to focus on Bilal. Right now in this country, there's a great deal of talk about the worth of Black people. We don't like to call ourselves just as a color because we think that's a deficient way to identify human beings. So we prefer to identify with the culture and the religion that we have come from. We come from the continent of Africa. We know Africa is a very diverse place, and because of our experience during the transatlantic slave trade, we weren't able to retain much of our Islamic identity and our language and our cultural practices. But as Allah would have it, in the 19th century, there was a resurgence of interest in Islam in the Western Hemisphere, primarily among African American people. People like the Honorable Elijah Muhammad, people like Malcolm X and Muhammad Ali and Louis Farrakhan and Imam W.D. Muhammad, who was born into that movement, who made their contributions to American life as Muslims. And we want to continue in that tradition. So this book, we hope that this book will be used throughout schools, the Islamic schools that exist all over the United States of America. We hope that this will become a part of the curriculum in our schools because Bilal played a significant role. And there's also evidence by scientists who have studied the blues, which is an American genre of music that developed on this continent among African Americans and mainly in the Mississippi Delta. And there are those who study music who said that the rhythms that you find in the blues patterns itself after the rhythms that you hear in the adhan. Allahu Akbar, Allahu Akbar, Allahu Akbar, Allahu Akbar. Those same rhythmic patterns have been studied by those who study music theory, and they have determined that the same patterns that exist in the adhan exist in the American blues. So that's a evidence of the connection that African Americans have with Islam somewhere deep in their subconscious. As a matter of fact, there was one writer by the name of Dr. C. Eric Lincoln who got his thesis. He did his thesis on the Nation of Islam, and he coined the term genetic memory. He said there's something called a genetic memory that seems to exist in the African American people. And when they heard the name Islam and they heard the name Muhammad and they heard the name Allah, that somehow this connected in the subconscious of African American people, and it attracted them to what Dr. Suleiman and Yang later called pseudo-Islam, though it wasn't Islam proper according to the Quran and the life example of Muhammad the Prophet, which we call his Sunnah, but it was a step in the direction of reconnecting African American people with their Islamic legacy and their Islamic past. So we're very appreciative of this organization who has produced this book. We're appreciative of Haroon for inviting us to be here and have this discussion. And at this time, I want to stop my comments and see if there are any questions. Perhaps that may be a better way for us to respond for the remaining minutes we have on the show.
Imam, thank you very much.
Haroon, can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you. I just also type in on YouTube for our audience if they want to ask some questions. And can you elaborate on American blues a little bit more while we are waiting for the questions to come? You said you also study personally on the rhythm and melody. I think in an essential sense that how azan styles, some of the azan styles affected or influenced heavily American blues style. Do you want to talk more on this subject? If you want, I mean, would you? What is your
Yes,
finding?
thank you for that question. There was an article that appeared in the San Francisco Chronicle. A historian by the name of Sylvain Diouf had made the connection between the genre of music known as the blues, started by African Americans who experienced what we call slavery and Jim Crow and discrimination in the South. And as a result of that, it's a certain type of music that developed. Some of the popular musicians that sang the blues were people like B.B. King, Muddy Waters, Big Mama Thornton, and I could go on and on, Little Milton. I could go on and on naming blues singers. But this historian, Sylvain Diouf, also discovered that the same rhythmic patterns that exist in the blues are found in the traditional adhan that you hear called around the Muslim world. And traditional adhan, everyone
Imam, we lost the voice. Can you hear us?
were you able to hear me? Were
Now
you
we
able
can.
to hear me?
Now we can. Now we just lost for last 30 seconds or so. We can hear you now, Imam.
Oh, okay. Yes. So if you research or if you Google Sylvian Diouf, I think his name is spelled Diouff. First name Sylvan, and he's a historian. He wrote about slavery in the antebellum South and the Muslim presence there. And blues along with jazz, which is improvisational music. Those are the two original art music forms that developed on this continent. And I would say country and western may also fit in that category.
Thank you, Imam. Could you let us know
Yes, you will.
how Bilal, life of Bilal, can help us as a newcomers or first generation, second generation, who are relatively newcomers, you know, the United States can help us to contribute positively on race relations as a Muslim in the United States and, betterment of the society in large.
Yes, that's a great question. Muhammad the Prophet, sallallahu alaihi wasallam, when Islam started under Prophet Muhammad 1400 and some odd years ago on the Arabian Peninsula, his community was diverse from the very beginning. He was an Arab. Bilal ibn Rabah was an African. He was one of the first six who converted to Islam. And then there was Suhail al-Rumi, who was a person who had been raised among the Romans. He was in Prophet Muhammad's inner circle, along with Salman al-Farsi, who was a Persian. So from the very beginning, the message of Islam appealed to people from diverse places. It wasn't a religion that was based on ethnicity or a language for that matter. And the verses that you read from the Holy Quran says that God created you from a male and female. So it's pointing out the distinction that exists between male and female. And he also said, and he created you nations and tribes. Not that you would despise one another, but that you would get to know one another. So Islam, from the very beginning, we respect the diversity that exists on the planet, and we seek to get to know each other so that we can work cooperatively and harmoniously with one another for uplifting the human family. All of us are from Adam. Islam teaches that we have one common origin. There are differences that exist, but within those differences, we also have a sameness. If you mate Eskimo with someone from the Pacific Islands, you get a human being. If you mate someone from Europe with someone from Africa, you get a human being. If you mate someone from China with someone from America, you get a human being because we're one human species. And some of these external differences are superficial. Skin color, hair texture, Those things we acquire primarily from our environment. All of the people on the earth that you see that have dark skin, they're usually concentrated in areas where they receive a greater intensity of sunlight. All around the equator, you find people have darker skin and curly hair. That's a result of environment. And also, when you go to the northern, more northern portions, further away from the equator, you find that they have lighter skin and they have more hair on their body than people who live in hotter climates. So these things are a part of the environment. And Allah has created this diversity so that we would get to know one another and also have interdependent relationships with one another that are complementary. So Islam encourages us to work together cooperatively with Allah being the one in charge. Prophet Muhammad is our example. And whether you're a Muslim from Europe or a Muslim from Africa or a Muslim from America or a Muslim from the islands, we all identify with the book of Muslims, that's the Quran, the revealed word of Allah, and we believe in following the example of our Prophet Muhammad, who had a certain logic. He followed a certain reasoning. And we're trying to develop that reasoning from studying the Quran, studying the life example of Prophet Muhammad, using our intelligence and our human emotions and our good sentiments to come to the best conclusions. The Prophet instructed us that for everything that we read, there's an express meaning and there's an implied meaning. So we don't want to just go after the rudimentary message. We also want to look deeply into the message and make sure that we are making it agree with our life is agreeing with the word of God, and we want the best meaning thereof. So that requires on our part serious study and being willing to face sometimes persecution and misunderstanding while we're trying to educate people about the true message of Islam.
Imam, thank you very much.
And on that particular point,
Please
yes,
go ahead. Please go
I
ahead.
also want to give credit to Imam W.D. Muhammad, who for 33 years pioneered in sharing knowledge on the interfaith circuit among politicians and civic and government leaders, as well as traveling around the world promoting a better understanding of Islam and Muslims, the Quran, and Prophet Muhammad. So we're indebted to Imam W.D. Muhammad for his far-reaching vision and his sincerity.
I totally agree on your part, how Imam Waristu Muhammad, make the transformation. I think he was the transformation in
Yes.
chief to affect the culture and understanding and recall to original understanding of Islam to our society, not just for Afro-Americans, but for us as well, for the past and present and future.
Yes.
We are at the end of our program, brothers and sisters. If there is no more questions, I would like to stop here. And inshallah, next week, Friday, and Eastern time, 7:30 p.m. to 8:30 p.m. We are going to be here to analyze second chapter of the book, Bilal Habashi book, inshallah. And also with the experience of the Imam Abu Qadr al-Amin to see the reflection on the, in the footsteps of Bilal radiallahu anh, and being Bilal in United States. We are going to discuss those things. Please invite your friends. I'm going to send the link of the book, those who wants to read it. And be a part of this conversation, you're more than welcome anytime. Imam, I would like to thank you for your participation and contribution. May Allah help us to become better human being and better Muslim, to help us to understand each other and to work with one another, inshallah.
Inshallah. Shukran, jazakallah khairan. May Allah hear and answer our prayer.
Okay. Brothers and sisters in Islam and humanity, we concluded our first part of the program. We would like to see you again next week, same time, 7:30 p.m. to 8:30 p.m. on Friday in YouTube Live. Assalamu alaikum. Thank you very much.